Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call this May 5th, 2020 meeting of the Andalusia City Council to order and ask you to stand and join Councilman Sconyers as he leads us in the pledge and the prayer.
Favorite thing to do is to be a benefit to our community. Bless the gift of those of our transgressions and those who God has transgressed against us. We learn from your word that you are from everlasting to everlasting. And Father, we ask you tonight to take this virus away from us and send it out into the universe that it never return. But you just bless us, Father, to protect us and help us to go away that our lives can return to normal. We praise you, Father, and we love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to our first meeting in May, and remind everyone that we meet on the first and third Tuesdays of each month, with the work session generally starting at 5:30 and the official session starting immediately after that. Members of the council, you have before you the minutes of our meeting held April the 21st. There is one correction that needs to be made on those minutes, and it should show that Hazel Griffin was present by telephone. I think that the rules require us to do that. And we did have a quorum present.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the with corrections of the April 21st, 2020 regular meeting.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Mount to approve the minutes with the correction. Do we have a second?
I second.
We've got 2 seconds. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented with one correction, please indicate by raising your right hand. Any opposed, the same, and that is unanimous, and thank you for that. No unfinished business. Under item 5A, this will be the first reading of an ordinance that will authorize the city to accept credit cards for payment of city services, fees, and licenses. I'll call on the city clerk, if he will, to review that for you. And this, again, would just be the first reading tonight. We'll take it up at our next meeting.
Mayor, as you said, this ordinance will allow our business office to accept credit card and debit card payments for all of our businesses we do around the business office at City Hall. Everything from business licenses to permits, any and all sales transactions that we do down in the business office. So this will allow us to accept credit cards. It further allows us to assess a charge. Credit card companies or banks process the card, assess the fee. Typically it's a percentage. Sometimes with a debit card it might be a flat fee. Whatever the fee is, we will be required to charge users that fee to be able to use the card. So that's essentially what this ordinance says. It allows us to get set up in the business office to accept credit debit card and also to assess and pass along the fees and charges to the user.
Okay? As I said, we'll treat this as the first reading of this ordinance and take it up for a vote at our next city council meeting. Second item there, 5B, is ordinance 2020-05, which is the back-to-school sales tax holiday for 2020. This is something that we've done for many years. This ordinance would authorize the tax holiday, which would coincide with the state sales tax also holiday, and as well as the county. And it would start on the third Friday at 12:01 a.m. in July, which is July the 17th, and it would end at 12 midnight the following Sunday, July the 19th. This sales tax holiday is for people who are buying back-to-school supplies and things related to that, and there's a long list of things that qualify for that. I don't have the list here with me, but there's a lot of things that you wouldn't think of that are on that list, and we usually have that's usually a big sale weekend for our retail merchants here in Andalusia, as well as all over the state. So this is something we've done for many years. Again, this is the first reading of this ordinance 2020-05. We will take it up for a vote at our next meeting. The next item is to declare 2 vehicles of the police department surplus. One is a 1995 Chevrolet P30 van, and the other one is a 1995 Chevrolet S10 pickup truck. Neither one of these vehicles are really functional and not being used or operated by the police department. The chief is recommending that we declare those surplus, and the law requires us to do that so we can sell them, and the money will come back, be put into the fund, the general fund.
Mr. Mayor, motion to adopt resolution 2020-10, concerning the surplus of police department vehicles.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Sconnors. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Wells. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that is unanimous, and I thank you as well for that. Next item is a request for, we have on our square downtown and the streets running off, directly off of the square, we've got a problem with some of our striping. In fact, most of the striping down there on pedestrian crossways, on its stop signs, the stop bar, and a lot of that striping has been has had to be taken up or has come up because it's been run over so many times by vehicles, and we've had complaints from lots of folks about it and the danger that it poses primarily for pedestrians. So we looked into the cost of restriping, and to get the best value for restriping, to get the best value for your money, is to put it down on top of the seal coat of the asphalt, because if you put down the striping on the faded out asphalt, it doesn't show up very well, especially at night. So what I propose that we do is that we do a seal coat cover for the square, street around the square, and on each street off of the square for 1 block. And I don't know how many streets that is. I didn't count them up, but you can, in your mind, think of all the streets: Church Street, East 3 Knot Street, South Cotton Street, South 3 Knot Street, a couple of more side streets, O'Neill Court, street that goes down by the movie theater. Got what street that is, but anyway, there's several streets that go off. It'd go for 1 block, and the striping would be redone with this heavy striping that has a reflective coat on it, and it would make it much, much better and safer. We went out for estimates, to get estimates on this. We only got one estimate that came back, and that was from Robbie's Dozer and Construction Services out of Evergreen, Alabama. And the price for that is $49,919.52. That covers all of the materials and, of course, the cost for putting materials down, the labor for putting that stuff down. This should extend the life of that asphalt by 4 or 5 years, and same thing with the striping as well, which would push out the necessity to resurface that street for a good bit longer. So I would recommend to you that we contract with Robbie's Dozer and Construction Services. This amount of money here is under the amount required for us to seek bids, slightly under it, but it is under it. So I recommend to you that we get Mr. All right.
The answer is, it doesn't say anything other than on your up in full square, clear full square. That, no, it includes the by the walk off and way, those 6 streets coming off the square.
Yeah, it just doesn't say that in this site, but if you look at the square feet, it's 95,316 square feet. I think that's the measurement.
That's restriping inside the square and outside the square from all businesses courthouse, everywhere we seal those, will be restriped.
I just want to make sure I'll make a motion to, with this, started over and take it out of the gasoline tax fund.
Okay. The motion by Mr. Wells is to award the contract to Robbie Dozers for this amount and the money to come out of the gasoline tax fund. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Griffin. Do we have any further discussion, questions, or comments? I will just make one further comment. That's 2 coats, by the way, of the sealant. So it's a better job with double coats. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this. Do we have any further discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, the same, and that carries unanimously. Thank you for that. I would ask, first I'd like to report to the council that we had a meeting this afternoon in City Hall at 3 o'clock with myself, the mayor of Opp. We had our police chief and the 2 captains. We had the police chief from Opp and several officers from Opp. We had the sheriff here and several of his deputies. And we also had some Alabama Law Enforcement Agency law enforcement folks here to discuss and talk about the problem that we have experienced in the last month or so with burglaries of vehicles in and around Andalusia, Opp, and Covington County. Since April the 1st, there have been 53 of these vehicle burglaries investigated in this area. We had the meeting today, and we are going to develop a strike force from those 3 agencies to work with focusing on coming down on this criminal activity and making some arrests, putting a stop to it. One of the things that was suggested by some of the law enforcement folks was it might be good, since we get a lot of our leads, our police department and law enforcement get a lot of our leads in investigating these kind of crimes. We get a lot of leads from the public, or we hope we get a lot of leads from the public. And a lot of times that's the way these kinds of crimes are solved, is somebody in the public knows about it and know who's involved in it, and if they will tell the police, it would be helpful. So someone that was in the meeting this afternoon suggested to me that we offer a reward for someone who would come forward and give us information that would base probable cause for an arrest warrant for some or all of these burglaries. And I recommend that we do that. The city of Opp's going to do it. The sheriff was going to try to get the county commission to do it, to approve offering a reward as well at their meeting on Tuesday. And I recommend that we offer a reward from Andalusia for any of these that take place inside the city limits of Andalusia for $1,000 for someone who comes forward and gives us information upon which we can lawfully base an arrest warrant. So I recommend that to you. That money would need to come out of our contingency. Contingency. Oh. Okay. Yep. All right, we have a motion by Ms. Griffin. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Mount. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? I'll be responsible for Opp, county's responsible for the county, we're responsible for Andalusia, yes, sir. But having said that, all of these agencies are, for the first time that I've known about since I've been mayor, we have a strike force that we have put together. All 3 agencies are working together on this. So I'm very proud of that. The turnout this afternoon was impressive. Chief did a good job getting all these folks here. And I look for I look to see some heads rolling before too long. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions, comments, discussion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that, too, is unanimous, and I thank you for that. I have some announcements that I would like to make in connection with some of the things that's going on in the city and in the state. We have had a number of inquiries about opening the parks and the golf course, the city golf course out at LBW. Governor Ivey's Safer at Home order, which she announced last week, or she amended last week, she announced it 2 weeks ago, which continues through May the 15th, prohibits the opening of playground equipment. We encourage people to use our walking trails, such as the one at Robinson Park. There's no problem there as long as you maintain social distancing, which is 6 feet between you and the next person. But until the governor changes her order, we cannot open the parks, the playground parts of the parks, because there's just no way to keep that stuff sanitized. And you've got kids playing on it and all over them, and it's impossible to keep it sanitized. So that's the reason they were included in that order, and that's why, because you can't keep them sanitized. As far as the golf course is concerned, we have taken advantage of the time the golf course has been closed to meet the governor's order of 2 weeks. The first half of our order, which was 2 or 3 weeks ago when it went into effect, public golf courses were closed by that order. So we have used that time to complete some maintenance on our golf course. Primarily aeration of the greens and the fairways. And that's something that we do every spring anyway, and we usually have to close the course. If you've ever played on a golf course but the fairways and the greens are being aerated, you realize it's not a very fun thing to do, because it's little tiny holes, not so tiny really, they're about the circumference of that pin right there. They're just stuck every 4 or 5 inches apart, all up and down the fairways and all in the greens, which makes it impossible to really play very meaningful golf. So that's what we're doing right now. We're aerating the greens and the fairways, and we still have some time for that aeration process to be completed. They go back and put sand on top of that and fertilizer, and there's some other things that will take place. Hopefully, within a couple of weeks, that process will be complete, and at that point, maybe we can open the golf course, depending on what the governor's order is at that time. We'll just have to wait and see. For example, if you want to rent one of our golf carts to play in, you can only have one person per cart, because otherwise you're breaking the social distancing rule. If you're playing with other people, then you've got to keep yourself separated, and that's a tough thing for people to do. I mean, that's part of playing golf, is talking to folks and being around other people, and so it's not really hard to keep social distance from me when I'm playing, because I'm usually in the woods looking for a ball. I don't know where it went. So, but that's not true with a lot of people. Mr. Wells down here can hit one right down the middle of the fairway. I can't do that. But nevertheless, we will try to hopefully get our golf course open within the next 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully, depending on the governor's action. We've had some questions about curfew, whether the curfew is still in effect in Andalusia, and the answer to that question is yes. Our curfew is still in effect, and it will be so long as the governor keeps the same orders that she's got in place now on social distancing. The curfew starts at 10 p.m. and is lifted at 5 a.m. So everybody just take notice. You still can go get food if you want to get food. You can still go to work. You can still do the things that you have a legitimate reason for being out on the streets after the curfew. But after the curfew, if you're just out riding around and goofing off or meeting up with folks in the parking lot, then you're liable to be asked to go home. So, yes, the curfew is still in effect. And finally, the census. You may have noticed some signs around town encouraging Andalusians to complete the census. As of yesterday afternoon, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that 52.9% of the estimated population of Andalusia had completed the census. That's not good. Not good enough. OP is still ahead of us at 58% completed by their residents. We can't let OP beat us. We've got to get our count up, not just to beat OP, but because so much is tied to what your population is in the decennial census. For the next 10 years, every grant that we apply for, every kind of program that we want to participate in, every retail store that we try to recruit here, that people say, we want this and we want that. Mayor, why don't you get us one of these, one of those? Without population being where it needs to be, and that's around 10,000 folks, and that's what we need in Andalusia to compete for some of these stores that people say they want here, we're not going to get one of them. So it's important for everyone to complete the census. So after you complete your census, call up your neighbor and ask them if they've completed theirs. That'd be helpful. And we appreciate everybody getting on top of that. Okay. Yes, we've got some good news to report. The City Council approved purchasing 2 new pieces of equipment for our Public Works Department. The folks who pick up the trash, the limbs and leaves and stuff that people stack up on the side in front of their houses and on the side and out on the street. We've got 2 new pieces of equipment that are going to really help us get that job done much more quickly and more efficiently. And those two pieces of equipment should be online by next week, or maybe even. Yes. We had one brought to City Hall this afternoon, and we actually got to see it operated. So it's really amazing how efficient those things are going to make that job, and how much better, I think, and how much quicker we can get the stuff that's out on the side of the road, side of the streets. Okay, anything else to come from the council? All right, hearing nothing, we will stand adjourned.